And welcome to the bright side, friends. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. We've got lines open for you, and we want to hear from you if you've got questions about health, nutrition, prescription drugs, or if you want to wean yourself off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, or if you have a success story you'd like to share, you want to contribute to the conversation. 844-236-6010 is our number today and every day on the bright side, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And think about joining the Brightside Ben team. If you are interested in starting a home-based business, now's a golden opportunity to start a home-based business. It's also a golden opportunity to join the Brightside Ben team and the longevity family. Call 866-735-2470. Business is booming. The supplement business is booming. People are finally getting hip to the importance of nutritional supplementation for staying healthy. You can't find zinc in the stores. Everybody's on vitamin C. Longevity's got all kinds of immune-boosting supplements, as well as our Healthy Start Pack, Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Ultimate EFAs, and OsteoFX. You can find all the longevity products at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. You can also find a Join the Team Now link that you can click on at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com for a one-time $30 fee. You can be in business for yourself. You can also call 866-735-2470 for more information, 866-735-2470. Don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com. We've got Father's Day specials. Actually, we've got a whole bunch of specials up at truthtreatments.com. And also take a look at our nutritional supplements at truthnourishment.com. Thank you to Robert Lundgren for setting that up, truthnourishment.com. We've got a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about Vivation, which is known as the science of being happy. It's really a breath work, and I've been studying Vivation since the early 1990s, and it's been an important part of my life. We're going to talk about the science of being happy. Being happy is a science. Being happy is a skill. You don't just get happy. You don't just fall into happiness. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're depressed or when they're just not maximally joyful about life, is this idea that joyfulness and happiness just happens to us. It doesn't just happen. You have to work at it. It's a skill set. It's something that you can learn. And this is what Vivation is about, a powerful, really powerful self-development technique that lets you enjoy your feelings simply as energy patterns within the body. That is such an important idea. We label our feelings, and we label them based on our preconceived ideas. We label them based on our beliefs. But in essence, feelings are just energy. And when we return to the energy nature of feelings, there's a beautiful sensation of joy that arises. That's what Vivation is all about. We're going to talk to Paul Hughes, who is a Vivation expert, and Paul has been studying Vivation for many, many years. By the way, there is a book called Vivation, which is, I've been reading it since the early 1990s, and it's written by a guy named Jim Leonard and somebody else. There's two people who wrote that. I forgot who the second author is. It's called Vivation, V-I-V-A-T-I-O-N, Vivation. You can find a Vivation professional who can teach you Vivation. There's a lot of Vivation. You just have to Google Vivation. There's probably hundreds around the country, Vivation professionals. Paul Hughes is the executive director of Vivation International, and we're going to talk to Paul. At the bottom of the hour, we'll get your calls in our next segment, 844-236-6010. I want to talk a little bit about plant protein and animal protein. This is a big controversy. Vegetarians will tell you don't need animal protein. Meat eaters will tell you can't get everything you need from vegetables. Probably they're both a little bit right. I did my moment of truth today, by the way, on plant protein versus animal protein. You can find our moments of truth up on our Facebook page, The Bright Side with Pharmacist Ben, and also let's see, on criticalhealthnews.com you can find our moments of truth. Today I did my moment of truth on the difference between plant protein and animal protein. When you think about animal protein, you want to think about anabolism. Anabolism is building, bodybuilding. Animal protein contains numerous bodybuilding components. Something called creatine is available in animal protein. Of course, the amino acids in animal protein tend more towards building. And there's also something called CLA, conjugated linolenic acid, that's found in animal protein that's not found in plant protein. The iron that you get from animal protein is more bioavailable than the iron that you get in plant protein. There's something that seems wholesome and good about plant proteins, or about plants in general, but as it turns out, there's lots of yucky stuff in plants, especially mostly pesticides. Now, it's true you're going to probably get pesticides in animal protein because animals tend to eat vegetables. They eat grains, and they're eating grass, and obviously we put pesticides on everything. But it's true that vegetarians actually get excess amounts. They get more pesticides in their bodies, at least according to a Harvard study that tracked fruit and vegetable intake with pesticide residues and correlated it to vegetarianism. And it turns out that vegetarians are ingesting more of these pesticides. No surprise, because of what we spray on our plants. To me, the issue with glyphosate, which is a major, major contaminant in our water supply, it's in the air, it's in the ground. Glyphosate, of course, is a very powerful pesticide. This issue of glyphosate is behind, it has to be behind many of our long-term degenerative health challenges. And if you're eating a lot of veggies and you're eating a lot of fruits you're going to be getting a lot more of these pesticides, including glyphosate. Yes, I know that if you're doing dairy and you're doing animal protein, you're probably getting it too. But the fact is vegetarians have to ingest a lot more calories to get their nutritional needs met than carnivores. Now, I'm not either, and I don't really like meat, by the way. I'm not a big meat eater, although I'll eat it occasionally. But the idea that vegetarianism good, animal protein bad, carnivores are bad, and vegetarians are good, and there's this kind of subliminal idea that there's something good and wholesome about vegetarianism that's not good and wholesome about meat eaters has to be re-examined, or has to at least be looked at. We hear a lot of stuff, especially from guys like T. Colin Campbell, who wrote a book called The China Study about how terrible animal foods are, dairy and meat specifically. In the book, The China Syndrome, I think it's called. Is that what it's called? I think it's called The China Syndrome. The author is T. Colin Campbell, and he's a nutritionist, and he went all throughout China, and he did some epidemiological studies on the rates of cancer and heart disease among meat eaters and compared to vegetarians, and he found that there was more heart disease and there was more cancer among meat eaters. But what he didn't check on was what kind of meat were these folks eating. And that's one thing that's missed when we do studies that analyze vegetarianism versus carnivorism, I guess you call it, folks who eat animal foods. The health objections associated with eating animal foods usually don't take into account the toxicity of the animals. If you're going to eat animal foods, you want to try to go pasture raised, you want to eat local, you want to eat grass fed, and you want to go as organic as possible. That's not really available these days, or at least you have to hunt around to find organic meat. You have to hunt around to find pasture-raised and grass-fed meat. Theoretically speaking, I'm not talking practically, theoretically speaking, human beings are omnivores. We are supposed to eat animal foods, and animal foods are loaded with nutritional value. Now, I'm not talking about the philosophical aspects of killing animals. Forget that. Every animal in the animal kingdom eats another animal, by the way, or for the most part. Even if you're eating grass, you're eating something living. If it's not an animal, it's something that's alive. So we all exist by eating something else that's alive. But when it comes to animals, comparing animals that eat meat versus animals that eat grass, there's some big misunderstandings. We'll talk about that when we come back. On the bright side, I'm pharmacist Ben. Excuse me. We'll get your calls here in just a minute. I want to just finish this idea of meat versus of animal protein versus plant protein up real quick. The biggest problem with ingesting plant foods, and the biggest problem that I have with vegetarianism, is this misguided idea that large animals eat a lot of grass. A lot of times vegetarians will say, "Oh my God, look at gorillas and look at elephants and look at these large animals, and they just subsist on eating grass, and they're all vegetarians." And that is true, but what they don't take into account is the fact that they got to eat all day, number one, and that they have multiple stomachs. Many of these do. I don't know if elephants do, but ruminants do, and they have multiple stomachs that they use to process the vegetables. That's because vegetables and grass are hard for the body to extract nutrients out of. Especially this is true about plant-based protein. Plant-based protein has lower digestibility than animal protein. And in general, plant-based protein has a lower anabolic effect than animal protein. It has less essential amino acid content. There are deficiencies in other amino acids, specifically sulfur amino acids. Sulfur is very important for building. Plant amino acids oxidize more readily than animal amino acids. There's just a lot of problems associated with vegetarianism. Now, that having been said, philosophically there's an issue with eating meat, and practically speaking, eating meat today is not necessarily a great idea, or eating a lot of meat, because of hormones that are given to animals, because of pesticides, and because of antibiotics. But from a theoretical standpoint, human beings are omnivores. We're designed to eat We're designed to eat everything. Whatever we can find, we're designed to eat. So the idea that you'll hear sometimes vegetarians saying, oh, human beings aren't supposed to eat meat, they don't have the right teeth, and they don't have the right intestine, none of that is true. What is true is that buying your steak at Safeway or King Soopers is going to subject you to exposure to a lot of nasty chemicals. That is undeniable. But strictly from a nutritional value point of view, the amino acids in meat tend to be more anabolic, that is building, more important for anti-aging, more important for growth and repair. The nutrients in meat, in animal foods, are more readily available, especially the proteins and the amino acids. And if you're eating a lot of plant foods, you're going to be exposing yourself to a lot of pesticide toxicity. And so anyway, that's what I just wanted to get off my chest about animal protein versus plant protein. I personally don't eat a lot of animal foods, but from a philosophical standpoint, human beings should be eating whatever they can get their hands on, as long as it's unprocessed and quality food. Big problem, of course, is processing of foods. It's the boxed foods and the bagged foods, and the foods that have flavor enhancers and other various kinds of processing chemicals that are the real problem. So if you're going to, whatever you decide, if you're going to be a vegetarian, you're going to be a carnivore, try to go as unprocessed as possible. And by the way, cooking is a type of processing. So if you're cooking your foods, you want to cook your foods as little as possible. It means eating your meat rare and eating your veggies when they're still raw, or when they're at least have a certain degree of crispness associated with them. Steam your vegetables, and always steam your veggies with fat. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Time to hit the phones. Let's go to Bob in Minnesota and say good morning. What is up, Bob? Welcome to the bright side.
Hey, good morning, Ben. Hey, I just calling in reference to your interview with Dr. Drew Peterson yesterday.
Yeah.
And he talking about the COVID-19 biolab virus. He
the synthesized version, or the fabricated version of the virus. Is that what you're talking about? He was talking a little.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. On Monday, June 1st, I had got a hold of your production manager and passed on a website with regards to that.
What was the website?
Virus.
What was the website?
biorxiv.org.
I'm sorry, you just cut out. biorxiv?
Yep, correct.
biorxiv.org.
Yep.
Okay. Tell me what it says. What's the website about?
The basis of that article is that there's a protein, ORF8, that kind of inhibits the histocompatibility complex of the
That's
cell.
the immune system. We'll just call it the immune system, or the immune chemistry of the cell.
Okay, so basically it confuses the T cells to find the cells that have the actual virus in it, as well as.
So hang on, let me just translate that. What you're saying is that this virus has a mechanism built into it that will inhibit the immune system from attacking it?
Correct. I mean, it confuses it. It makes it very difficult for the immune system to find the sick cell.
Got it.
In addition to that, they engineered the furin protease cleavage into the COVID-19.
Now, hang on, Bob. You're obviously know a little bit about chemistry, but you're not talking to a bunch of people who know about chemistry. So I want everybody to understand what you're saying. So try to talk in simple terms. Basically, what you're saying is that, according to this website anyway, this virus has been engineered to inhibit the body's ability to attack it. Is that what I'm hearing you say, without getting into all the details?
Okay, correct. With an additional being able to spread rapidly.
Okay, gotcha. So, and that implies engineering?
Yes.
And okay, that doesn't surprise me if that's the case.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
What I want to comment on, though, is Dr. Drew Peterson, when he spoke of vaccines, he used the generic vaccine, but he didn't distinguish the fact that the new vaccine that they're trying to come out with to attack this virus is also using the same RNA technology. They're trying to use instead of incubating it through fermentation, the vaccine.
They're using the RNA against. In other words, it's a vaccine against the RNA, not against the virus.
Well, it's a vaccine using RNA technology to attack an RNA-designed virus.
What does that mean exactly? I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. Let me put it this way. What's the bottom line of what you're trying to say? Aside from the details, what's the major point?
Well, because you're asking about, can the immune system defend against this? And my question is, he didn't touch on the vaccine as an RNA vaccine. In other words, they're trying to use splice technology, CRISPR technology, to design a vaccine that the human body's never experienced before, and it's going to be a whole new animal for people to take this whole new vaccine. How dangerous is that?
I 100% on board with you, and I'd love to have this conversation with you, just me and you. But you're talking so far over people's heads, it's hard to understand. It's going to be hard for people to understand what you're saying. Bottom line is the vaccine is going to be a problematic approach. It's always a problematic approach. We want to be strengthening our body's ability to handle microbial attack, period. Vaccines are always going to be a problematic approach. They're from a time gone by when we did not understand the nature of the immune system. Vaccines were invented in the concept of vaccination was invented in the late 18th century. And even the modern success story of vaccines, the polio vaccine, was from the 1930s and 1940s. Vaccination today is nowhere near as important as it has been in the past now that we understand about building immunity. To me, it's absolute idiocy to try to go outside yourself to a frickin' doctor or to a health authority to take care of what is in the body's nature to do on its own. And whose interest is it to go outside of our bodies to health authorities? Health authorities, not in the human being's interest. And that's the bottom line here. What's that? Keep
in mind when they're treating the swine flu with the vaccine, many people died just from the vaccine alone. And now this RNA technology, untested, what's going to happen if people are taking that?
The untested nature of this vaccine, and the idea that the average American has that, we'll be saved by vaccines, just like we'll be saved by drugs, needs to be re-examined because it's not in the individual's interest, it's in the institution's interest, and it's always the individual versus the institution. Always, always, always. If you're an individual, you have an interest in taking care of your own health business that the institution does not have. All right, we got Paul Hughes coming up next. Okay, we are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben, and thank you for joining us. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, and 10 to 11 Central, and 24/7 on our archive pages at brightsideben.com, also benfuchsarchives.com, which has a search engine associated with it. Thank you to Peter in the UK for setting that up. All the longevity products can be had at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. And our Truth Skin Health products are all available at truthtreatments.com, Truth Nutritional Supplements at truthnourishment.com. So before we went to break, I was ranting a little bit because nothing gets my goat more than the idea of the never-ending battle between the institution and the individual. And when it comes to health, it's always nefarious. It's always evil. It's always anti-human being. Institutions are inherently anti-individual, and it's up to us as individuals to take our own business into our own hands, whether it's our legal business or whether it's our financial business, and especially when it's our health business. And when it comes to taking care of our health, it's important to eat correctly, it's important to supplement, it's important to exercise, but nothing is more important than breathing, than oxygen. You can go 40 days without food, you can go 4 days without water, but you can't go 4 minutes without oxygen. As soon as we're oxygen deprived, our immune system begins to suffer, our ability to think clearly begins to suffer, our health begins to suffer, our joie de vivre and our quality of life begins to suffer, and that's why I'm so excited to have our next guest on. Phil Hughes is the executive director, I guess you'd say, the executive director of Vivation International. Vivation is known as the science of enjoying all of your life. It's based on a book that was written by a guy named Jim Leonard and Phil Laut back in the 90s, which I read in the early 90s when I was a young guy. It's based on another book, which is called The Skill of Happiness, Creating Daily Ecstasy with Vivation, which was written by Jim Leonard, and it is a powerful, powerful technology that doesn't only utilize breathing, but I think as we'll get more information from Phil, I think it primarily utilizes breathing. So please welcome to the bright side. I'm sorry, Paul Hughes. Hey, Paul.
Hey, how's it going?
Nice to talk to you. And as I told you on the phone, and I've been saying to our listeners, I am a huge proponent of Vivation. It has helped me personally tremendously in my life. It's known as the science of enjoying all of your life, but it's related to breathing. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of the breath and the importance of oxygenation when it comes to enjoying all of your life, or The Skill of Happiness, as the book is titled?
Right. So it is technically a breathwork process, although it's actually more of a meditation process. So the breathing is the first element. We have 5. So it is a foundational element, and it's very, very important. Obviously, we breathe all the time, and so it's very, very important that we learn to sort of become conscious of that and become masters of that process. It is definitely our friend, and when we learn how to breathe and allow ourselves to breathe more fully and more healthfully, lots and lots of benefits come from that. It helps to have the other four elements, of which we can talk about. But the breathing is very important. I mean, certainly it oxygenates the cells. We generally, most people don't breathe enough. They're living in some kind of fear, anxiety, depression, especially now with the last 2 or 3 months and all the BS that's going on. So we tend to go into shallow breathing, which then shuts everything down and starts this vicious circle. But when we can break that cycle of pain and fear and anxiety, when we really start to take those breaths and really affirm that we have a right to be here, we have a right to breathe, we have a right to take up space, we have a right to breathe in oxygen, and to really seize that day through that breath. So, yeah, I can't say enough about the breath. It's a very foundational and very fundamentally important thing that we can all learn. I mean, how often do we hear when you're stressing out, someone says, hey, just take a deep breath? Of course, we kind of get irritated with them, but, there is a lot of truth to that. It's sort of I think they've known that for thousands of years, and you can look at the history of breath work and pranayama, as they say in yoga. It's a science that goes back thousands and thousands of years. So,
but it's not, Paul, it's not ordinary breath. It's a special kind of breath, right? Circular breathing?
Yeah. So what we do, So I want to say really clearly that there is technically no wrong way to breathe. I mean, if you look at the breathwork world and pranayama, there are thousands and thousands of techniques. And in Vivation, what we try to do is we try to move away from the technique. It's really about listening to the body and allowing the body to breathe itself. So this is where the other elements come in, because people think, well, like a good example, I'll be in a workshop and I'll have somebody raise their hand. They're going through some kind of difficulty, and they'll raise their hand, and I'll come over, and they'll ask me something to the effect of, am I doing this right? Am I breathing right? And my first question back to them is, do you feel good? How do you feel? And they say, I feel great. I said, then you're doing it right.
Got it.
And if they say, well, I'm not feeling so good, I said, well, try something else. And they will ask me, so what should I try? And there are what I'd call guidelines or suggestions, depending on what's going on with them. I might ask them to breathe slower and fuller, or faster and shallower, or fuller and faster. But generally what I always recommend as a default is to be playful with the breath, to be experimental with the breath, to have fun with the breath. So it's funny, we say breath work, but it is, in a sense, really breath play. You're really learning to sort of find your own rhythm. And so you kind of play with the breath, and if it starts feeling better, stay with that. If it starts not feeling so good, change it. So generally during a session, people are always adjusting and changing the breath. It's sort of a real-time thing. And initially when people learn this, it seems pretty complicated, kind of like trying to learn stick shift. But what happens is after a few sessions, the breathing becomes more and more automatic because the body just gets in sync with it.
Is how you feel always a metric for how well you're breathing?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, let me make sure I understand the question. So if somebody's feeling really good in life generally, if I don't know anything about them but they're just feeling good, would my first instinct say, are they breathing well? Probably. They're probably naturally, diaphragmatic breathers. They breathe more. They're just probably breathing more. In Vivation itself, I would say that the better the session is, the more efficient the integration is, the more bliss they're feeling. Generally speaking, that means they're in sync. They're breathing in a way that's really responsive to the feelings, and that's the important part. So the feelings of the body is your feedback. So, you're breathing and your feelings so you're always listening to the body. We always say in this that your body is your guru. And I noticed at the opening before I got on that you talked a lot about sort of individual versus institutions. And this is so important. We talk about sovereignty. And so in Vivation, it's all about body sovereignty. It's about emotional sovereignty. It's about breathing sovereignty. We are reclaiming our sovereignty to allow it, right? So it's really about reclaiming our own sovereignty. And so with Vivation, it's about achieving emotional autonomy, emotional freedom, and emotional sovereignty.
That is so awesome.
We have that capacity to do that.
That's awesome. I love that. And that's why I loved it. And I love all protocols that emphasize our ability to handle our own health business. That's why we talk a lot about nutrition on this program. But nothing is more fundamental than breathing. What I was getting at with my question is, if breathing and mood, or breathing and feelings, as you say, go together, can you get out of a lousy state of being or feeling lousy by manipulating your breathing techniques?
Yes. Now, this is important. So, and this is going to be different than a lot of what a lot of breath workers out there tell you, and this is what I think makes Vivation quite unique. I mean, there are other breath works that have come from Vivation, but Vivation was really the first one to recognize that it wasn't the breathing itself that causes the healing of the integration. Breathing's primary purpose is to put us in touch with the somatic aspect, the feeling aspect. It allows us to feel the feelings more. So the more you breathe, it's kind of like turning up the volume. It's turning up that awareness, turning up that fidelity of somatic body awareness. And so the breathing in and of itself doesn't cause integration, but it facilitates and assists it.
In the book,
with negative feelings, what we always say is that a negative feeling, there really isn't such a thing as a negative feeling.
I was just about to get in that. We got to take a break. We'll continue that when we come back from our break, because that's a really important point. Paul Hughes, we're talking about Vivation. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. Okay, we're back on the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Paul Hughes, the Executive Director of Vivation International. Paul, before we went to break, you were touching on something that I consider to be for me, the most important part of the book and the most important part of the Vivation philosophy, and that's the idea that to the body, all energy, or soma, as you say, all energy is inherently blissful, and that it's only in making things wrong or in labeling or in this mental aspect where we run into negativity and run into problems. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So think of it like this. Like, I'm sure we've all had where we're having a stressful day, and somebody might come up and point out, hey, your shoulders are kind of high and tense, right? It's like, and then when the moment that person points that out, we can drop the shoulders. It's when we become aware of tension in the body, it becomes much easier to relax it. So this is where the breath comes in. So when we breathe, it enhances our kinesthetic awareness. It enhances our body awareness. And so as we become aware of the feelings in our body, the energy in our body, and where those feelings and stresses are, it becomes easier and easier to let it go. The other thing that the breath does is it allows us to become more aware of the inherent bliss in the feeling, and so as we become more aware of the inherent bliss in the feeling, then our resistance to it's going to drop, and that's the key point.
I think that is so important, because most people think when they hear feelings, there's bad feelings and there's good feelings. But Jim Leonard, right? And so, but it's not true.
So, yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. This is a really important point that I like to make, which is that any negativity we experience is never the feeling itself or the emotion itself, the feeling itself. It's our resistance to it. So think of it like a hose. You got hose, water's going through the hose, everything's flying. And if you think of the word emotion, Latin word, emotion, to be in motion, so that's the nature and the natural state that emotions are to be in. And when emotions are flowing, everything's fine. So when we experience a negative emotion, what's really happening is we are in a state of resistance to the feelings that are coming up in that moment. And so that hose gets kinked. And so that kink is the point of what we'd call suffering or resistance or make wrong or negativity, whatever you want to call it. So when we can allow ourselves to relax in the presence of the feeling, to start to become aware of the inherent positivity in the feeling, and I always tell people, every feeling is at least 1% pleasurable. If it wasn't 1% pleasurable, you'd be in infinite agony, and I can tell by looking at you that you're not in infinite agony. So right away people say, well, wait a second, that means that, yes, there is at least a little bit bliss. And so I always ask my students to start paying attention to the 1% that is pleasurable. It's kind of like a carrot. It doesn't seem to have a lot of juice, but you put it through the juicer, and out comes all this juice. It's the same with the feeling. So when we start to feel that feeling that's negative, and we start to see the inherent positivity, and we let it go, and we relax in the presence of the feeling, and this includes even relaxing our effort in trying to change the feeling, because here's the thing, we can't change it. Feelings are feelings. So when we relax our tension or negativity or make wrong around the feeling, then we experience joy. And so every negative feeling, so whether it's sadness, anger, fear, there's two types of fear, actually, irrational and rational fear. So 4 primary negative emotions. Each of those has a positive counterpart. In other words, when we can relax in the presence of that negative feeling, we will experience the positive aspect or facet of that. So take sadness. When we can get under sadness, start to feel it, breathe it, and acknowledge it, and embrace it, and love it, and be patient and kind and gentle with that feeling, the resistance around it resolves, and what we experience is gratitude.
How about major grief?
Same thing. So grief, same thing. It's like when we get to the bottom of grief, when we really feel that grief, and of course, what this often entails is a lot of crying, right? So because we're relieving, we're grieving, we're letting go. But as we do with Vivation, as we let that go, the grieving process becomes a lot more efficient. So it's not like there's no shortcuts. It's just that we let go of all those resistances, and so that feeling of grief can move faster, move through us quicker. And it allows to flow the way it's supposed to flow. And what we experience is joy, bliss, and gratitude, and a lot of tears, and a lot of, ultimately, joy and love. That's what's always there. At the end, that's what is, in fact, real. Everything else was in our imagination. It was a negativity. So when we feel a feeling, we see its inherent positivity. It becomes easier to relax in the presence of that feeling. The breathing certainly helps because every exhale is relaxed, because we do a specific type of breathing in Vivation that's very different than a lot of other breath work. Do you think we can go into that? Do you think this is true for all feelings?
Do you think the sobbing that's associated with like horrific sadness or grief is the body's way of allowing emotion to be in motion?
Absolutely, yeah. Sobbing is that emotion finally moving through us.
So we should look to sob.
Absolutely.
We should look to sob when we're holding on to sadness or grief. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. I think sobbing is an incredibly powerful healing process if we just allow it to happen. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows that once you have that cry, most people I know, it's like once they've cried, it's like, oh my God, I feel so much better because you finally made peace with that feeling. You finally let it go. You've resolved it. You've integrated it.
Do you think disease and people's general sense of depression and crappy feeling is associated to not sobbing or not letting go?
Oh, yeah, all of it. So, yeah, it's all related to suppression or suppression of feelings. So,
is it related?
I would say that all disease, whether it's physical or mental or whatever, does, in fact, involve a strong aspect, a component of just suppression.
What does that say about our dependence on medical intervention?
Well, so you mean like going to the regular doctor, getting shots?
Yeah, going to a doctor if you're sick, and you just need to cry, and you go to a doctor. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, so mental health. So, yeah, go get doing antidepressants, things like that, right. So, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there's definitively a neurochemical, neurophysiological correlates to depression in terms of things like serotonin and dopamine and all those kinds of things. But we also, we are mind, body, spirit. We are spiritual beings as much as mental beings. And so, we can change our neurotransmitters. So, when somebody comes to me and they're really depressed and they are on an antidepressant, I don't just say, hey, stop giving me the antidepressants. What I do is I teach them a skill, because this is what this is. This is a skill people can learn to do on their own and become autonomous with this, is to do Vivation. And in the care, since they're probably in the care of a mental health professional, I have them start doing Vivation. And usually what happens for many, many people is they find that they can start, they don't have to rely on them anymore. They can let go of having to use any kind of antidepressant, because they want two reasons. One, they have a skill now that they can use to resolve those depressed feelings. But two, they can start to resolve the deeper underlying core issues that go back years and years and years historically, to resolve the understuff that leads to depression. Usually depression is the result of a chronic, ongoing suppression of sadness, and it eventually results in depression.
All right, so breathing is one of 5 steps.
One of 5 elements, correct.
Yeah, one of 5 elements. We only have about a minute and a half. Can you just briefly go through the other 4?
Yeah, okay, so the second one is complete relaxation, which is in every exercise. So, yeah, it's all about relaxation. The third is awareness in detail, which is kinesthetic feeling awareness, which is just learning to feel all the feelings in as much detail as you can, focusing on all the subtle changes and tinglings and all that. The fourth one is enjoying this moment as much as you can, or which we call integration to ecstasy, which is just continually finding ways to enjoy it. Just notice, even if it's a little bit enjoyable. It's not about changing it into enjoyable. It's just being open to it being enjoyable, keeping an open mind to the part of it that is enjoyable or that it could be enjoyable. The last one is what we call willingness, or do whatever you do, willingness is enough, which means that there's really no way to do this wrong. As long as you're doing this process and you're willing to do that, you do get results.
I love it, man. It's such beautiful, beautiful work. So how do people get a hold of you or get a hold of more information about Vivation if they're interested?
Yeah, so they can go to the website, Vivation.com. In fact, we are, this is really cool, because of COVID-19 and people getting all stressed and angry near all the riots and everything, we are rapidly moving to offering online courses. We'll be doing online sessions, online trainings. at an affordable rate, and that should be online within about 3 weeks. So right now, the best way to do is go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, and you will be in the loop. And our online courses and sessions that we're going to be doing twice a month will be available within the next few weeks.
Vivation.com. Now, the book Vivation and the Skill of Happiness, those are the only books I could find on the subject. Are there any others?
There's the Vivation Skill. Those are the two primary books. Jim did read another book called Your Fondest Dream, which is about using Vivation to find your true purpose. There are multiple other books written in other languages, a couple written in Spanish by a gal in South America that are on Vivation that have not been translated into English, but they're fantastic.
But for now, it's Vivation by Jim Leonard and Phil Out, and then The Skill of Happiness by Jim Leonard. Have you seen the interview with Jim Leonard on YouTube? That's a really cool interview, if you haven't seen it.
I've seen a few interviews over the years, yeah.
Okay, great.
Hey, and both those books are available on Amazon, and they are available as Kindle, at least one of them is.
Vivation is. I have it on Kindle. Vivation and The Skill of Happiness. Yeah. Hey, Paul, thank you so much for your work, and thank you for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care, Paul. The Vivation.com, I highly, highly recommend this skill set. It's super amazing. I've been using it almost all of my adult life, and I found it tremendously, tremendously valuable. I love the idea of enjoying the moment, not making it enjoyable, but finding the inherent joy in everything. It's such a powerful, powerful concept. All right, that's all the time we have for today. I am Pharmacist Ben. Please check out my websites, brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com for longevity products, and truthtreatments.com for truth skin health products. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to you later, folks. Bye for now.